Well, welcome into the WBZ studios as we discuss a raging debate, at least online anyway. I don't know if anyone else is talking about it, but
oh, they are.
Apparently it's out there. This whole blizzard of 78 thing versus what we saw yesterday, which was a pretty memorable blizzard for at least parts of the area. So we wanted to dig in a little bit. I'm Eric Fisher. This is Terry Eliasen, and let the debate begin.
Let's start with yesterday's storm. So let's take a look at the final map from yesterday, which thankfully looked a lot similar to our forecast map we started on Friday.
Very pleased with the forecast with this one. Basically, you had the big shadow out in the Connecticut River Valley, barely a snowstorm in New Hampshire and northern Massachusetts, at least compared to what we've seen so far this winter. In fact, most of the area had less snow in this storm than they did with the one in January. However, kind of bearing the lead, the big amounts there in southeastern Massachusetts and Rhode Island, which were exceptional for this part of the region. 41 inches of snow in Fall River, half foot in Plymouth, Lakeville, New Bedford as well, over 30 in Attleboro and Hanson, and 31 in Middleborough. Those are some big numbers for southeastern Mass.
They sure are, but looking back, I was just perusing through weather history here earlier, and it's amazing how many storms we've had that we actually get over 30 inches of snow. The one that pops in my mind, blizzard of 2005, there was 38 inches in Plymouth. It does happen. I mean, it's not in every storm, it's not an every year occasion.
I mean, we do this with a lot of different weather events. People's memories are garbage. Ours included half the time. You got to refresh yourself every once in a while. Everything seems new and novel because you don't remember last week or the month before. Every single big storm that I can remember here has over 30 inches of snow.
Right.
I mean, at least a half dozen of them since I started working here 13 years ago.
Right.
So we do get big numbers, but they're not always in this part of the state.
Yeah, and I think if we were to take one thing from this snowstorm, statistically speaking, it would be the Providence number. I just think the 120 some odd years of record keeping, you blow away your prior biggest snowstorm by almost 10 inches, that being the blizzard of 78. That's pretty darn notable.
Absolutely. So if we're making anything that is similar to what we saw in 78, or in this case, even bigger, it's the snowfall in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Basically, that's the one thing where this one beats out the blizzard of 78. And even that, we look at the blizzard of 78 totals. If you talk to anyone who lived here, they'll say these numbers are garbage. They say not enough snow. It was a different time because obviously there weren't as many weather spotters. There wasn't as much technology. People weren't sharing everything. In terms of official numbers, they were measured different before the mid-90s. They were measured at the end of the storm, and they weren't measured every 6 hours on a cleared whiteboard like they are now. So we had reports over 50 inches in Rhode Island in the blizzard of 78. They're not in the official books, but anyone who lived through it will tell you, boy, we had 50 inches of snow and we had 20-foot snow drifts after this storm. Here are some of the images from the blizzard of 78. We did have some cars stuck on the roads and abandoned last night, which is crazy. I mean, when you've got blizzard warnings up in this day and age and you know what's coming, don't do that. There's no reason for that to happen.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason for this in 1978, the stranded cars, was just that the forecasts were not as good. We didn't have as much data back then. People went to school, they went to work in the morning. It was a Monday morning, which probably makes it even worse. They went to school, they went to work, and then it just came in like crazy. It came in late morning. 4-inch-an-hour snowfall, and everyone tried to escape and get home, and this is what happened.
Yeah, so the backstory of 78 leading up to it is that there was a blizzard of 78 before the blizzard of 78. That was in January. And for those who might live in Connecticut, that was the storm that crashed the Civic Center roof in Connecticut. Big storm in January, terrible forecast. And then there was another event that had a terrible forecast. 78 had some warning. There were rudimentary models at that time that did a fairly good job. The Weather Service did put out a heavy snow warning the day before. It's still a different version because then there were heavy snow, 6 to 12 inches. And we consider that a good forecast. That's a horrible forecast when it comes to what actually transpired. But he also had, differing local meteorologists. There were one in particular who did an excellent job with it, and others who said under 4 inches of snow. That was the morning of the storm.
Right.
That can't happen now.
Right.
You can't have someone go on TV the morning of a storm and say, about 2 to 4 inches of snow and get 40 inches of snow. It's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, it has changed so much, the technology. I mean, we literally started, and I'm not trying to toot our own horn here, but all meteorologists were starting to talk about the blizzard of 2026 like a week in advance. I mean, not like we had the numbers out or that we knew it would be a blizzard, but we're like, we're seeing something.
At least have a heads up.
You're looking out 7 days, and then by the time we hit Thursday and Friday of last week, 48, 72 hours out, we knew that there would be, it was going to be a major snowstorm.
Yeah, we had blizzard graphics
Right.
on Friday, big snow amounts on Friday, and then starts, after midnight on Sunday night. That's some pretty ample warning. And, probably can be better. Sometimes we do have 7 days out, nothing changes.
Right.
The storm we had in January, I felt like on Tuesday, here's the big snow forecast, and it never changed.
Right.
All the way through.
And not to mention, schools were closing on this weekend. They're closing on Saturday, 48 hours ahead of time.
Yeah.
I'm sure your workplace probably contacted you over the weekend. Hey, don't come in today. The mayor's on TV. Everybody was certainly prepared, which is great. That's sort of our main role here.
The idea of a forecast is that nothing happens.
Right, exactly.
Because everyone takes precautions.
So those differences they can't be replicated. Obviously we didn't have the communication ability that we do now back then. We don't have the weather data. So those are some big differences, obviously. But
yeah, so the snow in Rhode Island and maybe Southeast Mass is really that's where the similarities end between these two storms in terms of severity.
If we could bring that map up again of our graphics just to show the blizzard 78.
Yeah, that would be great. So basically this storm was big banding right over Rhode Island and Southeast Mass. Blizzard 78 much more widespread. You look at that snow, much more of the area participating in a big storm. It was over 2 days instead of less than 1 day. And in terms of the snow, the banding was in a similar-ish spots, maybe just a little farther north and west in 78 versus this one. But that is kind of how it played out for us. I think the 2005 blizzard that Terry mentioned, that's the best comp for this one. That one, not too long ago, 20 years ago, had 38 inches in Plymouth, 40 inches in Mashpee. So again, the big high-end storms all produce 30 to 40 inches of snow.
Just wrapping up the snow, blizzard 78 versus blizzard 2026, I think you had the same sort of high-end type snows. You had a bullseye almost in the same area. For me, there's more widespread, significant snow. Like you have 20 to 30 inches all the way up in New Hampshire.
Easily.
So I think the check mark goes to the blizzard 78 here as far as the heavier amounts of snow overall.
The unofficial off-the-books numbers were higher in 78 too. The one thing you could say, I would do one more thing on the snow part of it, that was different with this storm is that it happened in a day.
Right.
Where 78 was over 2 days. So the rates were off the charts. I mean, the snowfall rates of 4 to 5 inches per hour at times during this, that was something that was truly exceptional. It looks like the 24-hour state snowfall records in Massachusetts and Rhode Island probably fell during this storm. They'll give it a look, but it's a lot of snow in a short amount of time.
Good thing most people were not on the roads. Obviously, if they were, we could have easily had another 128 parking lot situation, not in 128, but further south. Yesterday, I think, again, there's where the sort of the prior warning comes into play.
All right, what else we got?
Moving on, yes. So I think probably the biggest difference, right, has to be the coastal flooding.
100%.
I mean, this storm really, very minor issues.
Basically no coastal flood. I mean, some splash over, some minor, the vulnerable spots, but we've had high tides, basically, that have brought as much flooding as we saw yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, the blizzard 78 you're talking about, and I believe we have video of this as well, we had 4 consecutive high tide cycles with major coastal flooding. This, I believe, is probably some of the most memorable. This is the reason why I think we remember the blizzard 78 in most ways. I mean, other than the people stranded on the roadways from the snow. This is insane.
This is a look at, what is this, like Peggotty Beach here or up toward Revere? And just unbelievable amounts of water coming in. So this is the difference between a true top-of-the-scale storm and one that's just a really big storm. It hit at a supermoon, full, high tide, astronomical high tide, and it went over 4 cycles. You had so much destruction, so many coastal homes lost. You lost the outermost house in this one. You lost motif number 1 in this house up in Rockport. That's a rebuild that's up there now. It was just very, very different. And snow is one thing, but this is a whole different can of worms.
Yeah, and obviously coastal flooding, you equate the winds with that as well. We obviously had a very strong wind gust yesterday, many over 70 miles per hour, but it was a short-lived sort of 6 to 8, 10 hours worth of wind. Blizzard 78 sat and spun around just south of New England for 2.5 days. You had persistent wind over the course of 36, 48 hours. You had higher peak gusts in the Blizzard 78. I believe it was 100 in Situate, maybe 110 Plum Island. It was a higher end wind event back in 78.
About 20 miles per hour on the higher end than what we saw yesterday. Both still very powerful storms. Obviously, we had some destruction and some power outages yesterday, but it was not like this, and really no coastal damage to speak of. Barely any coastal flooding to speak of from yesterday's storm. We really lucked out with the timing of the tides.
Yeah, so back to the graphics one more time, Seth. I think we want to basically wrap this. I think you can kind of get what we're saying here. I think we're a heavy lean in one direction, so to speak. This is just a final sort of comparison for the city of Boston. If you look at the snow totals for 78 versus 2026, 10 inches more in 78. The winds obviously higher in 78, and the flooding is just, you can't even really compare it. So
also, not to mention the deaths.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people died in the blizzard of 78, and a lot of rescues had to take place. I mean, that's just not something that we had to deal with. Hopefully that will continue. We got to watch out for things like carbon monoxide, people making sure their vents are clear and not shoveling too much heavy snowfall. You can build up, unfortunately, some mortality with that, but it's not a big story with this storm compared to what we saw back then. So
here's my last question. If you put the blizzard of 78, let's say we swapped storms for years. So in other words, you took the exact storm, the blizzard of 78, and you put it yesterday. And you put the yesterday's storm back, in that, you know what I'm saying?
Okay. We're doing sliding doors here.
Yes, so would yesterday's blizzard back in 78, would that have been memorable? Would we be talking about it?
Yes, I think so. In terms of the snow removal would have been so much, and it's still underway now, but I think that we would have had longer school closures. It would take longer to restore power. I mean, some people were out of school for 2 weeks after 78. I mean, no one's missing 2 weeks of school off of yesterday. But if you bring it back in time, it's probably at least a week.
It probably, right. Obviously, the coastal flooding wouldn't have been anything. But you're right. I do think, given the technology back then, and to just remove snow, the ability to remove snow from the area, I think it still would have been memorable. I don't know that we would have been
talking about for years and years?
Maybe not.
No, we wouldn't.
Maybe not. Now, okay, so vice versa. You put the blizzard of 78 storm yesterday. Would it be something? Clearly, the coastal flooding outdoes everything. You would never forget those scenes. But snow-wise, I feel like it would be sort of similar to what happened. You know what I mean? I think.
Yeah.
I don't think there'd be a huge difference there.
Yeah, I think it would still be an extremely memorable storm if you put 78 now on today. Even if the impacts were a little bit less, it would be something that people will remember for quite a long time.
Yeah.
The most recent comp that we really had to 78, and I think just in general, is the 2013 blizzard. That had 40 inches of snow in eastern Connecticut, so a similar spot to where we saw yesterday, just a little bit farther west. We had almost the same amount of snow in Boston as we had during 78. We had almost the same wind speed, stronger winds than yesterday's storm in the 2013 blizzard. I mean, there was a whole area of the South Shore where it looked like a microburst had come through. I mean, it just razed trees to the ground. Those winds were so strong. And there was way more coastal flooding in 2013. So when I'm thinking about recent memorable storms, just kind of in the last 15, 20 years, that's the closest we've come to what we saw in 78.
But I'm not sure we'll ever get a storm again, a winter storm that 50 years later we'll be talking about like we still talk about the blizzard of 78.
Probably not. Just the societal impact was just a different time. You can't compare eras. It's just a whole different time.
Now a hurricane, that could be different.
There were more Boston accents around back then, too. So, when you're doing the interviews, it's a lot more color commentary compared to all the stuff that we do now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think people in general, we just kind of forget a lot of storms. Life moves faster. We kind of move on to the next thing a lot faster now. I mean, I started here in 2013. Think about the storms we've had just since 2013.
Yeah.
I mean, that Nemo 2013 blizzard was one of them. We had several blizzards in 2015. The record holder in Worcester was in 2015.
The four nor'easters.
The four nor'easters in 2018. That was the high water level that beat out the blizzard of 78. We had a blizzard in 2022, which was very similar to what we saw yesterday. In fact, more people got more snow in 2022 than yesterday. So we've had a lot of really high-end storms.
And I don't think anybody saying, remember that 2018 high watermark storm? Maybe
the only people remember is like the dumpster floating through the seaport. And they're like, oh, remember that one? Yeah, that was the high watermark all time in Boston.
So the blizzard of 78 still stands tall. I think it's in the memories.
Easily. Not a contest.
Not a contest. So stop with the social media. No. I mean, everyone has their own opinion.
The snow memory in those high spots, though, it's up there.
Agreed.
I mean, you might be able to hang one over on your dad or your grandpa about 78 if you live in Rhode Island or in Southeast Mass.
For sure. Well, thanks for watching. That's kind of our thoughts. I'm sure everybody has different thoughts, but just thought it'd be fun to sort of explore the parallels and the differences.
All right. Well, you can hate us and leave comments and tell us how wrong we are. And hopefully have a great day. Have a safe dig out from this storm and try to think spring. We'll get there eventually.